Hello, everyone. My name is Javier Garza, and I was born in the Rio Grande Valley. I was born in McAllen, raised in Rio Grande City, lived in Edinburgh for a few years while I was getting my bachelor's degree in art and education. I live in San Antonio now, have lived here for the last 20 years, where I went to UTSA, where I got my master's in art history and criticism. And I also like to write books and do my own illustrations. You might say, well, I would like to write books and I would like to do my own illustrations. And I tell you that you can. Because writing is in the blood of each and every single person from El Valle. You may not know it, but the Valley has a rich history of literature. El Valle is the home of Americo Paredes, one of the biggest names in Latino literature. He wrote with a pistol in his hand the Ballad of Gregorio Cortés. It is also the home of Jovita Gonzalez, who was from Roma, who was one of the first Latina women to get published in El Valle. It's also the home of Gloria Anzaldúa, one of the biggest names of Latina literature. It's also the home of Dr. Orlando Hinojosa Smith, one of the biggest names in Latino literature. It's also the home of David Rice, Ed Cauchelsa, who wrote the book Crazy Loco. It's also the home of René Saldaña, who wrote The Jumping Tree. It's also the home of Viola Canales, who wrote the book The Tequila Worm. It's also the home of Dr. David Bowles, who wrote the book series The Garza Twins. And there are many, many more people from El Valle that are authors that are telling our stories, our cuentos. And you can too. All of you, anybody can write a book. And the reason you can write a book is because we all have cuentos. We all have stories. We all have things that have either happened to you or to someone that you know. Or you have that aunt, uncle, mother, father, grandfather. They keep telling you all these cuentos, all these stories. And all these cuentos that you hear, they can become the foundation for a book. And you might say, well, I'm little. I'm in second grade, third grade, fifth grade. I would like to write a book one day, but what do I do to get ready? And I tell kids, what you can do to get ready is this. Number one is the most obvious. If you want to be a writer, you write. You write every single day. Write a little bit every day. Because writing is like a muscle. The more you do it, the stronger you will become. You don't believe me? Take something that you write when you're in first grade. Then something from second, third grade, fourth grade, sixth grade, eighth grade, high school, and save what you write. And then look at it, and you will see you've gotten better and better and better. So write a lot. The second thing you should do is to read. Read as many books as you can, guys. Big books, little books, comic books, magazines. Read. Read as many different stories as you can. Scary stories, funny stories, even romantic stories. But read. Because when you're reading, guys, you're actually learning how to write. You're learning how to tell a story, how to make it be funny, scary. And when you sit down to write, you're going to try to write like somebody else. But you know what's going to happen? All of a sudden, you start to write like you. You become the storyteller. You become the writer. So write and read. Read every day. As many books as you can. You got the library at your schools. Check out as many books as you can. Read them all. I tell kids that when I was little, I did not have a library at my school till I got to junior high. In elementary school, we had what was called a bookmobile. It was a bus, basically, that showed up, and they had books, and we would go in there and check out books. And when the bookmobile came, we didn't want to be the first groups to go because all the good books were not there. We also didn't want to be the last good group to go because all the books would be gone. We wanted to go in the middle because in the middle, that's when you got the really good book because kids had returned them. So write a lot and read a lot. And this last one is really important, guys. If you have an idea for a story, write it down. Save it. Because a lot of really, truly awesome, great ideas are lost every day because people don't write them down. They say, oh, I'll remember, but they don't. They forget because they didn't write them down. When we don't write things down, we forget. And that goes for everything, including stories. And we'll talk about stories in a bit. Now, you don't have to write the whole story right away, guys. No, you can just write down your idea. You can say, you know what, I want to make a story about a little boy or a girl that pretends to make a rocket ship out of cardboard, flies to the moon and back, and has adventures. Boy, girl, makes rocket ship out of cardboard, flies to the moon and back, period. Adventures, period. See, you save your idea. Once you save your idea, you can always go back. But when you don't, se te olvida, you will forget. And that's the way great stories never happen, because we forget. And that's the worst thing that can happen to a story, to forget it. Now, read a lot, write a lot, and save your ideas. And this next advice I'm going to give you is really important, guys. Don't give up on your idea just because somebody tells you that it's not good. Some of the best ideas ever, people didn't like at the beginning. I'll be honest with you. No les gustaba la idea. I'll give you an example. Really great idea that a lot of people did not think was a good idea when they were first introducing. Two kids, not much older than you guys are, had an idea. And they thought it was a great idea. It was an idea that was going to make them famous. And they worked on their idea. One of the kids wanted to be an illustrator, the one that makes the pictures. The other one wanted to be a writer. And together, they worked on their idea, and they thought it's getting better and better. This idea is so awesome. They grew up. One became a writer. The other one did become an illustrator. And they tried to get their idea published, and nobody liked it. They were told that their idea was silly. They were told that their idea was dumb, that nobody was going to like it. And that had to hurt. You work on an idea for so long and then they don't like it, it makes you feel bad. But they didn't quit. Just because they told them that it wasn't a good idea did not mean that they were right. And they did not give up. And they kept working on their idea. And their idea kept getting better and better and better till finally somebody published their idea. And you know what their idea was? The idea they had that so many people thought was not going to be good? Their idea was, they had a story that there was a planet far away from Earth, a planet where a scientist discovered that the world that we're living on was going to explode. But nobody believed him. So he built a rocket ship that was just large enough to carry his son, who was a baby. He was going to try and save his son. And he put his son in this rocket ship and sent him to the planet called Earth, where the baby was found by a couple that raised the little baby as if he was their own son. And as the baby grew older, however, they discovered that he was different. He could do things that nobody else could do. He was faster than a speeding bullet, more powerful than a locomotive. He could leap over tall buildings in a single bound, and people laughed at them when they said that their hero was going to wear blue tights. They were all like, blue tights? Kids don't want to read stories about guys running around in blue tights. They said, but no, he's not just going to wear the tights. He looks silly running around in just tights. No. He's going to wear red underwear on top of the tights. And they laughed at them even more. They laughed when they said that he was going to have shiny red boots. They were going to put a red cape on him, put the letter S on his chest, and they were going to call him Superman. But they were told for 5 years that was a bad idea. No kid was going to like it. But they didn't give up. And because they didn't give up, you know what they did? They created the world's first superhero. Superman was the first superhero. You know what happened? Other people read their stories and they liked it. And you know what people did? They got inspired to write their own stories. And they gave us Batman, Spider-Man, Wonder Woman, Iron Man, the Incredible Hulk. They gave us all this great, wonderful heroes, Black Canary. But for all that to happen, somebody had to come up with the first idea. And like I said, that first idea inspired other people to come up with their own ideas. So if you have an idea that you think is great, you keep working on it and you make it better and better and better, and don't give up on it. Because while you're working on your idea and you're making it better, you know what's happening to you? You're becoming a better writer. And you're growing and you're learning. So write a lot, read a lot, and save your ideas. And somebody once asked me, but where would I even get an idea for a story? Talk to your parents. Talk to your abuelos. Look at your own family. Talk to your familia. Tell them, what's your story, Grandpa? You know, what's the story of you growing up? What was it like when you were growing up? And their stories could become they become the inspiration for your cuentos. We forget that our abuelos were once young, just like you guys. And they had their stories. They had their adventures. They had a whole life. You might know them as abuelo and abuela, grandpa and grandma. But talk to them about when they were your age. You'd be surprised at the stories that they'll tell you. Talk to your mom and dad. I'm sure they got wonderful stories. And all those stories that you hear, they can become a foundation for a book. And I'm going to share something with you guys. This is a story that I'm working on that's supposed to come out in a book. It's an anthology. Writers from El Valle. And this is my contribution to it. It's called Tell Me a Story. Dime un cuento. And it's all about telling our children stories and children listening to those stories. And it goes like this. Tell me a story. Dime un cuento. It can be a long story or it can be a short one too. It can be a brand new cuento or a favorite old one. And the story continues. It goes, you can tell me the story of how as a kid you used to play with canicas, marbles. Tell me cuentos of those magical marbles made of glass that sparkle with every color of the rainbow when you held them up to the sun. Then there's also more stories. You can tell me a scary story. You can tell me the cuento of how El Chupacabras is lurking outside my window, waiting to make me its next victim. You can tell me a happy story. Like the cuento of how as a kid you liked seeing Grandma and Grandpa dance merengues. They were so good. You yourself wish you could dance like Grandpa did. That's what you told me. But just don't tell me a sad story. Because sad cuentos always make me want to cry. But you know what? Go ahead and tell it to me. Because it's part of my story too. You can tell me a Christmas story. You can tell me the cuento of Santa's Mexican cousin who delivered presents to all the little boys and girls that live along both sides of the U.S.-Mexico border. You can tell me the story of Charro Claus. You can tell me a story of La Lucha Libre. Tell me cuentos of this mass heroes and villains who wear masks and shiny capes and tights. Tell me a cuento of how you got to see Lucha Libre. You can tell me a story about Mexico. You can fill my head with cuentos of its grand fiestas, colorful piñatas, its leyendas, its beautiful music, its sweet-tasting paletas. Better yet, why not make the story be a bilingual cuento and tell it to me in both English and Spanish? Why not give me the best of both worlds? But most important of all, just tell me a story. Dime un cuento. Tell it to me as I close my eyes and go to sleep. Tell me a story. Dime un cuento. We all got stories, guys. every single one of you. And we need to share them. We need to write them down so they will never, ever forget them. And all of you can become a writer and you can become an illustrator. Because like I said, El Valle has a rich history of literature and it's in your blood. Thank you. Muchas gracias.